This is Community Radio Networks. It is Wednesday, the 6th of March, and I'm going to get you all the information now for you to take on the day today. All coming up right here on Community Radio Networks. We'll start with the world news first. We will have the financial news and some off-news stories all coming up for you right here. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news, read by Shabnam Margill. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley will announce today that she's exiting the Republican presidential race, clearing the path for former President Trump. Nikki Haley announcing in a little while that she's exiting the presidential race, and Donald Trump's sole rival in that race for the 2024 GOP nomination, announcing she's all going to back out as former U.S. ambassador, suspending her presidential campaign today, ensuring that Donald Trump will win the Republican nomination and once again face Democratic President Joe Biden in November's election. Her speech is going to be at 10 o'clock Eastern Time to address her future in the race, but she will not make an endorsement at that time. She urged Trump to try to win the backing of her supporters, which include a significant chunk of moderate Republicans and independent voters. The former UN ambassador planning on suspending her campaign for president in the wake of a slew of Super Tuesday losses yesterday. Former President Trump swept nearly all of the year's Super Tuesday primaries and caucuses, routing his last major rival for the Republican presidential nomination, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and putting him within striking distance of a November rematch with President Biden, the Democrat who beat him in 2020. Biden also won lopsided victories yesterday across 15 states. A full 854 GOP delegates were up for grabs yesterday, more than a third of this year's total. A candidate needs 1,215 delegates to clinch the 2024 Republican nomination. Trump's delegate advantage is continuing to grow as results come in from around the country. Haley went into Super Tuesday yesterday with a bit of wind at her back. She won the Washington, D.C. primary on Sunday, her first primary victory and the only primary victory ever for a woman Republican presidential candidate. A few days earlier, she had endorsed Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Senator Susan Collins of Maine, two centrist Republicans from Super Tuesday states. Once Haley formally ends her candidacy today, another general election battle between Trump and Biden will get underway. Voters in 15 states and U.S. territories of American Samoa headed to the polls yesterday on what is known as Super Tuesday, the single biggest day of primary voting in the presidential election cycle. Not all the races were decided last night, and some Texas races headed to a runoff. Texas voters have 27 runoff elections to look forward to in May. The bad news about that is there will be another 83 days of political ads. U.S. Representative Colin Allred claimed victory last night in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate, which would line up a general election contest against U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott, joined by Texas Division of Emergency Management Chief Director of A&M Agriculture and other leaders to provide an update on the state's response to the Texas Panhandle wildfires. The governor called for help from others to donate resources. The main two things asked for recovery are fencing and feeding resources for cattle. Hay is the number one item for cattle near this wildfire. Former President Trump declared that Israel must finish the problem in its war against Hamas, his most definitive position on the conflict. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on Hamas to accept an immediate ceasefire with Israel as the group met Qatari and Egyptian mediators in Cairo. International mediators set for a fourth day of talks with Hamas in Cairo after President Biden called on the Palestinian group to agree to a truce deal with Israel by the start of Ramzan. Israeli negotiators have so far stayed away from the Cairo talks, and the U.S. revised language in a draft UN Security Council resolution to back an immediate ceasefire of roughly 6 weeks in Gaza, together with the release of all hostages. Hamas negotiators stayed in Cairo for these ceasefire talks in an attempt to halt the fighting in the Gaza Strip in time for the fasting month of Ramzan, free Israeli hostages, and stave off famine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on Hamas to accept this plan for an immediate ceasefire. Israel will allow as many worshippers to access the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem during the first week of Ramzan as in previous years. The Palestinian group Hamas said it would continue working towards achieving the ceasefire in Gaza with Israel, despite the absence of Israeli negotiators from the latest round of talks in Cairo. International mediators with Hamas negotiators in Cairo for talks on this truce to pause nearly 5 months of fighting in Gaza before the Muslim holy month of Ramadan that starts this weekend. An estimated 8,000 patients need evacuation out of the Gaza Strip, according to the World Health Organization, voicing frustration that few have so far been transferred outside the besieged territory. Southeast Asian and Australian leaders called for a quick and lasting ceasefire in Gaza, describing the humanitarian situation in the Palestinian territory as dire. Time magazine has named Israeli and Palestinian women calling for peace among its Women of the Year, which lists 12 extraordinary leaders working towards a more equal world. And Novak Djokovic returns to Indian Wells for the first time in 5 years, seeking a record 6th title, while Coco Gauff looks to become the first U.S. woman to win the tournament since Serena Williams in 2001, when main draw action begins today. Soldiers have been deployed to defend the airport of the Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince from an assault by armed groups. Witnesses reporting hearing shots ringing out in the vicinity there of the airport as security forces clash with armed men. The gangs aim to prevent the return to Haiti of Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who is believed to be abroad. Violence has spiraled in his absence, with the gangs demanding that he resign. Mr. Henry left Haiti last week to attend a regional summit in Guyana. From there, he traveled to Kenya to sign a deal on the deployment of a multinational police force to Haiti. A ruinous conflict raging for about a year between rival generals in Sudan risks creating the world's largest hunger crisis, according to the top UN food official, warning this morning as the global attention has been focused on the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Cindy McCain, head of the World Food Programme, said the fighting in Sudan, which pits the country's military against a violent paramilitary group, has shattered the lives of millions across the northeastern African nation. And Ghana's president has said his government will wait for a Supreme Court ruling before taking action on a bill that would further criminalize members of the LGBTQ community in the West African nation. This news out of Accra. More than 70 children are missing following recent jihadist attacks in Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province, and they became separated from their families as thousands fled to a neighboring province in recent weeks. There are fears that some of them may have been kidnapped by the fighters linked to the Islamic State group. And 4 migrants found dead and 64 rescued when a boat from Mauritania reached Spain's Canary Islands after a dangerous Atlantic journey from West Africa. This according to the Spain's Maritime Rescue Service. The migrants arrived on the island of El Hierro last night, and the survivors include 2 women and 9 minors. Roman Polanski will face trial in France over allegations that he defamed the British actress Charlotte Lewis after she accused him of having sexually assaulted her in the 1980s. He is still a fugitive from U.S. justice over a rape case involving a 13-year-old in 1977, faces multiple accusations relating to other alleged sexual assaults dating back decades, all of which he has denied. Britain's government appeared to have made an embarrassing mistake after it advertised that Kate, the Princess of Wales, will attend a Trooping the Colour ceremony in June, apparently before consulting palace officials. The announcement to the UK Ministry of Defence's website drew attention because the June appearance would be the first major official duty confirmed for the 42-year-old Kate since she underwent abdominal surgery. But army officials seem to have jumped the gun because Prince William and Kate's office in Kensington Palace hasn't confirmed any scheduled public events for Kate. French conservatives and far-right figures fumed at the official poster for this summer's Paris Olympics, complaining that a Christian cross and the French flag were missing due to wokeism. Those responsible for the image were ready to deny France, going so far as to distort reality to cancel its history. As top of the list of complaints about this poster, which depicts a stylized panorama of Paris, is the absence of the cross that sits atop the Dôme des Invalides, the historic military complex in central Paris where Napoleon is buried. France invited Ukraine's foreign minister, foreign and defense ministers of Kyiv's main allies, and the NATO Secretary General to a video conference tomorrow to show a united stance and develop solid proposals to strengthen support for Ukraine. Germany and France want to work together to ensure better supply of ammunition to Ukraine, as discussed by Germany's foreign minister and her French counterpart. Hundreds of Czechs and a handful of Ukrainians are working round the clock in Eastern Czech Republic to transform a collection of buildings dating back to World War II into a hub for supplying arms and ammunition to Ukraine. And the UN Atomic Watchdog Agency's director has arrived in Russia for talks on nuclear safety in Ukraine, where Europe's largest nuclear power plant is at risk amid fighting. The International Atomic Energy Agency has repeatedly expressed alarm about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant amid fears of a potential nuclear catastrophe. Ukrainian President Zelensky has welcomed the International Criminal Court's decision to issue arrest warrants for Russia's long-range aviation and Black Sea fleet commanders. The International Criminal Court has issued these arrest warrants for top Russian commanders over alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian sea drones reportedly sank another Russian warship in the Black Sea, the latest in a series of strikes that has crippled Moscow's naval capability and limited its operations, with the war now in its third year. Russia's spy master said that opposition leader Alexei Navalny died of natural causes, a statement that appeared to reflect the Kremlin's efforts to assuage international outrage over the death of President Putin's fiercest foe. And Yulia Navalny, the widow of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, urged Russians to stage a protest on the day against President Putin by forming long queues outside polling stations. We need to go to the polling stations on that one day at one time, the 17th of March at noon. And a few weeks ago, she had accused the Russian president of killing her husband and asserted that she would soon reveal the details. Russia and China are considering putting a nuclear power plant on the moon from 2033 to 35, according to Yuri Borisov, the head of the Russia's space agency Roscosmos. Something, he said, could one day allow lunar settlements to be built. China will boost its defense spending by 7.2% this year, fueling a military budget that has more than doubled under President Xi Jinping's 11 years in office as Beijing hardens its stance on Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the world news on Community Radio Networks on this Wednesday, the 6th of March. South Korea's president has vowed not to tolerate the prolonged walkouts by thousands of junior doctors, calling them an illegal collective action that threatens public health and shakes the country's governing systems. President Yoon Suk-yeol's government in the process of suspending the licenses of about 9,000 medical interns and residents over their joint walkouts that have impacted hospitals' capacity to provide care. Meanwhile, marriages in South Korea plummeted by 40% over the past 10 years, leading to significant consequences for the country's birth rate. And Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, topped a list of the world's most polluted cities. Hanoi is enveloped in thick smog caused by high levels of particulates attributed to widespread construction vehicle emissions, carbon emissions from coal plants, and agricultural burning, contributing to its position on Swiss air quality firms. The Maldivian president, Mohamed Muizzu, has announced that the country will not renew its agreement with India for conducting hydrographic surveys. Instead, Maldives plans to acquire the necessary facilities and machines to carry out the surveys independently. The Indian men's hockey team is set to commence its journey with a match against New Zealand on the 27th of July in the upcoming Paris Olympics, as per the schedule unveiled this morning. Rising Indian opener Yashasvi Jaiswal today achieved a significant milestone, entering the top 10 of the ICC rankings for test batters for the first time in his career. His exceptional performance in the ongoing home series against England propelled him into the top 10. And as the sun sets on what has been a captivating test series between India and England, the picturesque town of Dharamsala is set to host the fifth and final match, marking a historic occasion for two stalwarts of the game, Ravichandran Ashwin and Johnny Bairstow. With India already securing an unassailable 3-1 lead, the focus now shifts to Ashwin's monumental 100th test appearance and Bairstow's significant milestone amidst discussions surrounding the pitch conditions and player strategies. The Wrestling Foundation of India today announced that wrestlers from their respective original states will be permitted to participate in the upcoming trials. Moreover, one grappler will have the opportunity to compete in multiple categories during the two-day selection competition set to commence on the 10th of this month. Prime Minister Modi today met with women who have accused suspended Trinamool Congress leader Sheikh Shahjahan of sexual assault in Sandeshkhali. The Prime Minister met them following a public rally at Barasat in the North 24 Parganas district where Sandesh Khali is located. Prime Minister Modi today came down heavy on the Trinamool Congress over the Sandesh Khali case and said that the party is trying to protect the accused. Hitting out at the Mamata Banerjee-led TMC government in Bengal, Prime Minister Modi said that the women of the land have been tortured and whatever happened with them is a matter of shame. Congress's top leadership is set to convene in the national capital tomorrow to conclude the selection of candidates for the forthcoming Lok Sabha elections. The meeting will be attended by key figures such as President Mallikarjun Kharge, former President Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, along with other senior leaders who form part of the decision-making panel. And commuters in Delhi may experience traffic jams today due to the ongoing farmers' protest. Reports indicating a significant jam has already formed at the Singhu border between Delhi and Haryana as farmers gather in protest. These protesting farmers are set to resume their march to the capital city of Delhi to press for their demands, including minimum price guarantees for their crops, and in response, the police have increased security at the Punjab and Haryana borders. The Kisan Mazdoor Morcha and the Samyukta Kisan Morcha, the two umbrella bodies leading the farmers' protests, have called on farmers from across the country to join them in the national capital today. The National Investigation Agency has announced a cash reward of 10 lakh rupees for any information regarding the bomber responsible for the Rameshwaram cafe blast in Bengaluru. The NIA said the identity of the informant will be kept confidential. Punjab Governor Baligur Rahman has administered oath to the 18-member provincial cabinet in Pakistan. PTI's barrister Gohar Ali Khan, incarcerated leader Imran Khan, has chosen Omar Ayub Khan as the leader of the opposition in the National Assembly, and the PMLN has become the largest political party in the National Assembly, with the number of its MLAs surging by 16 to 123 following the distribution of reserve seats denied to the Sunni Ittihad Council among three political parties. The Pakistan Institute of Legislative Development and Transparency has released its assessment of the 2024 general election, indicating a concerning decline in fairness scores compared to previous election cycles. And the Election Commission of Pakistan has sought additional lists for women reserved seats in the National Assembly from the PMLN. A summary regarding the appointment of the provincial cabinet, a copy of which is available, was sent to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Governor Haji Ghulam Ali today, and the Peshawar High Court barred till tomorrow the oath-taking of the beneficiaries that were given the National Assembly reserved seats the Sunni Ittihad Council contest should have been allocated. The Supreme Court today observed that the trial under the 1979 judgment that sent former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to the gallows did not meet the requirements as a fair trial and due process. Headed by Chief Justice of Pakistan Qazi Faiz Issa, a 9-judge bench announced its much-anticipated opinion on the long-pending presidential reference to answer whether it can revisit its verdict, which the PPP and jurists regard as a historic wrong. The Pindi Cricket Stadium crowd chanted cha-cha-cha-cha as they awaited an Ifti-mania, the term which has recently emerged as a description for Iftikhar Ahmed's power-hitting exploits. The spectators tend to enjoy match-winning knocks by the Pakistan all-rounder, probably more than they do when those come from others. And last night it was set up for him to take the charge for the Multan Sultans against Peshawar Zalmi in the HBL Pakistan Super League match. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you, and we will continue to get you more information coming up. I do have your financial news that will be coming up very, very soon. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks as we get you all the information ready for you to take on the day. Today it's Wednesday, the 6th of March. Let's get you now the financial news here for today. It is Wednesday, the 6th of March, and we will start with the foreign currency exchange rates that we bring to you every morning. We have the Indian rupee at 82.81, Pakistani rupee at 279.24, the Bangladeshi taka at 109.74, Sri Lankan rupee 307.90, Nepalese rupee 132.55, the British pound at 0.79, the euro at 0.92, the Canadian dollar 1.36, the Australian dollar 1.53, Mexican peso 16.87, Chinese yuan 7.20, Japanese yen 149.39, the Russian ruble at 90.87, the Thai baht at 35.65, and the Turkish lira at 31.74. U.S. stock futures moved higher this morning with techs vaulting back from a steep sell-off as investors waited to discover whether Federal Reserve Chair Jeremy Powell is still cautious about a pivot on interest rates. Futures on the Nasdaq 100 jumped roughly 0.7% after techs led a sharp slide in stocks more broadly yesterday. S&P 500 futures added 0.4% and Dow Jones Industrial Average futures put on 0.2%, both coming off losses of more than 1%. Powell's testimony to Congress later may provide a catalyst for stocks which have logged 2 days of losses as a battering for Magnificent Seven stalwarts Apple and Tesla fueled bubble fears. U.S. stock futures signaling a Wall Street rebound after this 2-day sell-off as traders waited to see if Federal Reserve Chair Jeremy Powell will continue to push back against the prospect of speedy interest rate cuts. The price of Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency by market value, reached an all-time high of 69,210 yesterday before retreating. The digital asset has risen nearly 200% year over year after sinking as low as 13,000 in November of 22. Smaller cryptocurrencies are starting to pull ahead of record set coin Bitcoin as traders bet the tokens are next in line to test all-time peaks. The index tracking the bottom half of the largest 100 digital assets is up about 60% over the past month, beating the 56% advance in Bitcoin. Treasuries declined ahead of remarks from Federal Reserve Chair Jeremy Powell and key labor market data, which are set to test bond investors' conviction about interest rate cuts in the U.S. Oil prices have fallen slightly today as concerns about demand growth in China, the world's biggest crude importer, clash with signs of supply tightness amid output cuts by major producers. Prices were also supported by a weaker U.S. dollar, which helps demand for buyers paying in other countries. Brent crude futures fell 13 cents to 81.91 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 11 cents to 78.04 a barrel. Gold steadied after surging to a record in the previous session, boosted by expectations for U.S. rate cuts, geopolitical tensions, and the risk of a pullback in equity markets. The bullion rose to a peak of 2,141.79 an ounce, surpassing the high set in early December. The precious metal has climbed almost 5% over the last 5 sessions. With asset values from stocks to crypto to homes spiraling higher, inflation still considered too high, and worries of exuberance creeping into the conversation. Although inflation may be showing signs of cooling down, grocery prices continue to climb, according to the recent data from the Consumer Price Index. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has released estimates for this year, which show all food prices going up by 2.9 to 5.3%. And restaurant prices up 5 to 6.3%. Growth in the U.S. service sector has cooled last month, partly due to a decline in employment, even as orders and business activity quickened. Tesla Inc. stock is on course to shed $76 billion in market capitalization in just 2 days, fueled by negative headlines from China and Germany that rekindle concerns about the company's growth trajectory. Shipments from Tesla's Shanghai factory sank to the lowest in over a year last month, weighing on the automaker's stock, which was down as much as 5.6% yesterday after closing 7.2% lower on Monday. OpenAI, the firm behind ChatGPT, denied Elon Musk's accusations of betrayal of its original mission and said it would push to have them dismissed in court. The boss of Tesla, SpaceX, and X was one of the co-founders of OpenAI in 2015, along with Sam Altman, but left the organization in 2018 and is now one of its most vocal critics. Meta platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, went down for thousands of users yesterday because of what the company called a technical issue. The outage was resolved within around 2 hours. As many as 500,000 Facebook users had reported issues logging in or accessing the site as of mid-morning yesterday. Meta suffered a highly unusual outage of all its social media platforms, with users on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads being locked out of their accounts for several hours. U.S. authorities announced sanctions on parties associated with the Intellexa consortium, citing their role in making the distributing commercial spyware used to target U.S. official journalists and others. Commercial surveillance tools increasingly present a security risk to the U.S. and the citizens. The Predator spyware has been deployed by foreign actors in an effort to covertly surveil U.S. government officials, journalists, and policy experts. Target, looking for ways to reverse the sales malaise, is getting into Amazon territory and paid membership game. The Minneapolis discounter said the new paid program called Target Circle 360 will offer unlimited free same-day delivery in as little as an hour for orders over $35 and free 2-day shipping. Traders eyeing Apple Inc. after its stock slid below a critical psychological threshold yesterday. Shares entered a technical correction for the first time since August this month. The shares, which failed to hold the $180 support level last week, traded for less than $170 at various points during yesterday's session. Dodge has revealed its next-generation all-electric muscle car, the 2025 Dodge Charger Daytona. Though Dodge says the Charger Daytona is the world's first and only electric muscle car, a title it may hold indefinitely as the EV market pivots, Dodge also surprised its gas-loving fans with an internal combustion version also. Shares of CrowdStrike are trading higher after the company posted its fourth quarter earnings, revealing $845 million in revenue versus an expected $839 million. Blackstone Inc., Thomson Reuters Corporation, and other investors have sold a 4% stake in the London Stock Exchange Group plc as they continue to sell down their holdings in the market infrastructure and data provider. OpenAI recently gave us all a peek into its latest generative AI offering, Sora, and it was mind-blowing. Sora can create videos a minute long with just a text prompt. But what makes the text so impressive is its ability to understand and simulate physics, which is why OpenAI characterizes Sora as a world simulator, and some of the videos the company has released to the public have to be seen to be believed. Jones Soda, a premium craft soda known for its bold and unique flavors, is putting a grown-up twist on its iconic beverage with the launch of Spiked Jones Hard Craft Soda. Spiked Jones is a full-flavor beverage made with cane sugar and an elevated alcohol content, launching with 19.2-ounce single cans and a mixed pack of 12-ounce cans. A San Diego man has been arrested on suspicion of smuggling potent greenhouse gases into the United States from Mexico, becoming the first in the nation to be charged with smuggling the environmentally harmful gases that are commonly used as refrigerants. The 58-year-old Michael Hart, accused of hiding the hydrofluorocarbons, also known as HFCs, in his vehicle to transport them across the border from Mexico. The quality of 5G connectivity offered across different cities in Europe have been revealed, according to findings by a fixed and mobile network benchmark from MedUX. Out of a group of 10 cities in Europe, including Barcelona, Paris, and Lisbon, London ranked 10th for 5G quality of experience, while Berlin took the top position. Frankfurt Airport will be closed to departing passengers tomorrow due to a strike by security staff. The operator recommends that passengers contact the airlines and said they should not travel to the airport under any circumstances. The impact on the flight schedule remained initially unclear. So far, planes are still expected to land, and passengers on incoming flights should be able to change at Frankfurt, which is Germany's largest airport. A small Japanese shipbuilder was the most actively traded stock by value in Tokyo today, surpassing the world's largest automaker, Toyota Motor Corporation. Turnover for Mitsui E&S Company was $1.9 billion, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Toyota, which has a market value that's 230 times larger than the shipbuilder. Mitsui E&S, which rose 8.6% this morning, has surged about 220% since boosting its fully operating disappointing profit outlook in mid-February. The Japanese government, meanwhile, has announced that it's now offering free daycare to all children aged 6 months to 2 years. The Child Care Access for All program set to begin next month with a trial run in 150 municipalities will see nationwide implementation by the year 2026, and all children within the age range will be eligible with initial access capped at 10 hours per month, though an increase is planned for 2026. Mount Fuji, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and an icon of Japan, is putting new regulations in place for climbers amid concerns about overcrowding, human traffic jams, foothill litter with garbage, and inappropriately attired hikers, some attempting to ascend in sandals, are among the issues plaguing the popular Japanese side. The ease congestion on the mountain, the Yamanashi prefectural government, which manages Fuji, voted to charge 2,000 yens per climber going forward. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers has reportedly given a 6-month deadline to China's TikTok. And this, according to a report by Reuters, that lawmakers have introduced a legislation that gives China's ByteDance about 6 months to divest popular short video app TikTok or face a U.S. ban. Global investors are seeking comfort from the fact that India doesn't flip-flop on regulations like China, and the country's agility in terms of tackling newer and evolving areas like artificial intelligence and fintech are seen as big positives. We do have Chinese electric vehicle maker BYD planning to cover 90% of the EV market in India by the end of the year as it strengthens its product portfolio on EVs priced above 30 lakh rupees category. India's state-run oil refineries are shying away from contracted Russian crude supply as the once booming trade becomes much harder under tighter enforcement of U.S. sanctions. The biggest state-owned refiner, Indian Oil Corporation, will likely reduce the amount of crude received under so-called term supply, while Bharat Petroleum and Hindustan Petroleum have decided against making firm commitments to take contracted oil next financial year. The Indian luxury car market will more than double in volume by decade's end and cross 100,000 units as growing wealth across cities and launch of new models will fuel demand. This according to the head of the region overseas for Mercedes-Benz and over 100 markets for Mercedes globally, saying that the luxury cars have been growing at a healthy pace in India, which is now a strategic market for that brand, Mercedes-Benz. The Competition and Consumer Commission of Singapore has granted conditional approval for merging Vistara, which is owned 49% by Singapore Airlines, into Air India. SIA will hold 25.1% stake in the merged AI, with Tata's having the remaining stake. A new regional airline will take to the skies this week that will, among other routes, link Lakshadweep to more cities. The Director General of Civil Aviation in New Delhi today issued the air operator permit to aviation veteran Manoj Chako, backed Fly 91. The airline currently has 2 ATR 72s and will get 4 more by September, after which it plans to add 6 turboprops annually over the next 5 years. The stock market witnessed a volatile trading session today, but ultimately ended on a positive note. Both the benchmark indices, Sensex and Nifty, recouped from the earlier losses and settled at fresh record high levels. Gold, meanwhile, scaled to an all-time high of 65,150 rupees per 10 grams. And the Indian Banks Association has invited bank unions to sign wage revision settlement at Chennai on the 11th of this month. In a major move aimed at enhancing consumer choice and promoting competition, the Reserve Bank of India has directed credit card issuers to provide their eligible customers with the option to choose from multiple card networks. The stock price of Tata Motors rallied over 7% in early trading after the company announced a demerger of its commercial and passenger vehicle business. And Tata Power, an electric vehicle charging solutions provider, has achieved a significant milestone in Mumbai. They have successfully transitioned over 1,000 of their EV charging points to be powered by green energy. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif directed the authorities concerned to formulate proposals for reducing government expenditure and overhauling the country's economic structure. The business community of Karachi has urged the Prime Minister to fulfill the promises made during the last days of his previous government for creating and enabling a business environment. The Chief Executive Officer of Habib Bank Limited, Pakistan's largest bank, is likely to be tapped for a top position in the finance team of newly elected Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Hub Power Company Limited Limited, the country's largest private utility, expects power consumption in the country to fall again this year due to higher tariffs and tepid industrial activity. Ramadan America, an anthology film featuring 5 stories about Muslim families in the U.S. set during Ramzan and Eid, is set to release on the 9th of this month at the Hideout Theater in Austin, Texas. Rifelian Media's first of its kind production not only stars American Muslims but is also written and directed by American Muslims. The groundbreaking production will also debut at this year's South by Southwest Film Festival, and it will premiere at the festival's Muslim House, a recurring event that provides dedicated space for American Muslim voices. Ramadan America, promising to span genres, themes, and cultural nuances in its attempt to showcase the true spirit of Ramzan and Eid, and some of the actors featured in the film will also be Pakistani, while the executive producer of Ramadan America is Pakistani. A trailer for the film is on YouTube, and this 2-minute video introduces us to a bunch of families all caught up in their own struggles and celebrations, hinting at a lot of drama that unravels during Sehri, the last till Iftar. And the anthology series will include The Eid Gift by director Jumai Yusuf, Nani's Biryani by Huria Muhammad, Gedu's Gift by Omi Omar, Playmates by Kashif Pasta, and In the Meantime by Ijaz Nuhu. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you today. And I do have some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 6th of March, and those are coming up for you. Stay with me right here on Community Radio Networks. Let's get you some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 6th of March. It was Michelangelo, arguably the greatest of the Italian Renaissance artists, who was born in the small village of Caprice on the 6th of March today's date in the year 1475. The son of a government administrator, grew up in Florence, the center of the early Renaissance movement, and became an artist's apprentice at the age of 13. Demonstrating obvious talent, he was taken under the wing of Lorenzo de' Medici, the ruler of the Florentine Republic and a great patron of the arts. He would go on to master painting, sculpture, and even architecture, becoming best known for powerful sculptures like David and for his ceiling frescoes at the Vatican Sistine Chapel. For 2 years, beginning 1490, he lived in the Medici Palace, where he was a student of the sculptor Giovanni and studied the Medici art collection, which included ancient Roman statuary. And it is Michelangelo, who was born on today's date in the year 1475. He agreed to paint a mural of the Florence City Hall to rest alongside one being painted by Leonardo da Vinci, another leading Renaissance artist and an influence on Michelangelo. And these murals, which depicted military scenes, have not survived. In 1505, he began work on a planned group of 12 marble apostles for the Florence Cathedral, but abandoned the project when he was commissioned to design and sculpt a massive tomb out there. And that was Michelangelo, born on today's date in the year 1475. And this happened there at this massive tomb to be built at the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. He worked until his death in 1564 at the age of 88, and in addition to his major artistic works, he produced numerous other sculptures, frescoes, architectural designs, and drawings, many of which are unfinished and some of which are lost. He was also an accomplished poet, and some 300 of his poems are preserved. In his lifetime, he was celebrated as Europe's greatest living artist, and today he is held up as one of the greatest artists of all time, as exalted in the visual arts as William Shakespeare is in literature, or Ludwig van Beethoven is in music. A committee of the New York Provincial Congress instructs Major William Malcolm to dismantle the Sandy Hook Lighthouse in the then disputed territory of Sandy Hook, now in New Jersey. And that happened on today's date in the year 1776, telling him to use your best discretion to render the lighthouse entirely useless. The Sandy Hook Lighthouse first shone its beam in 1764 after the Provincial Congress of New York orchestrated 2 lotteries to raise money for its construction. Discussion about the construction of a lighthouse for Sandy Hook had begun nearly a century before. Initiated by colonial Governor Edmund Andros, and 43 New York merchants proposed the lotteries to the Provincial Council after losing £20,000 sterling from shipwrecks in early 1761. His efforts, of course, failed to keep the British from invading New York. They were soon able to put the lighthouse back into service by installing lamps and reflectors. The Patriots attempted to knock the lighthouse light out again on the 1st of June, and by placing cannon on boats and attempting to blow away the British paraphernalia. They managed some damage before being chased away, and the new states of New Jersey and New York bickered over ownership of the lighthouse until the federal government assumed control of all U.S. lighthouses. And as of 1996, the Sandy Hook Lighthouse, the oldest original lighthouse in the United States, passed into the jurisdiction of the National Park Service. And on the 6th of March in the year 1820, President James Monroe signs the Missouri Compromise, also known as the Compromise Bill, into law. The bill attempted to equalize the number of slave-holding states and free states in the country, allowing Missouri into the Union as a slave state, while Maine joined as a free state. Additionally, portions of the Louisiana Purchase territory north of the 36 degrees 30 minutes latitude line were prohibited from engaging in slavery by this bill. And in the end, the Missouri Compromise failed, though, to permanently ease the underlying tensions caused by the slavery issue. And the conflict that flared up during the bill's drafting presaged how the nation would eventually divide along territorial, economic, and ideological lines 40 years later during the Civil War. On the 6th of March in 1836, after 13 days of intermittent fighting, the Battle of the Alamo comes to a gruesome end, capping off a pivotal moment in the Texas Revolution. Mexican forces were victorious in recapturing the fort, and nearly all of the roughly 200 Texan defenders, including frontiersman Davy Crockett, died. 13 days earlier, Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna ordered the siege of the Alamo Mission, near present-day San Antonio, which you all visit all the time, which had been occupied by rebel Texas forces since December, and an army of over 1,000 Mexican soldiers began descending on the makeshift fort and setting up artillery. And that final attack came before dawn on today's date, the 6th of March, when Mexican troops breached the north wall and flooded into the compound, awakening many of the Texans inside. The fighting lasted 90 minutes, some of it hand-to-hand combat. Bowie and Travis were killed, as was David Crockett. Although reports differ as to exactly how and when, several Texans reportedly surrendered, but Santa Anna ordered all prisoners be executed. Only a handful survived, mostly women and children, and historians estimate several hundred Mexicans died. After the battle, the Mexican army marched east. Meanwhile, Sam Houston, the commander of the Texas forces, had been building and developing his army in Harris County. Remember the Alamo became their rallying cry as an urgent reminder to avenge their earlier defeat. And Texas and Mexico fought again at the Battle of San Jacinto. Texas was victorious this time and won independence from Mexico, bringing the Texas Revolution to an end. The defense of the Alamo remains a symbol of resistance and revolution, and the battle has been immortalized in several TV series and films, including 1960's The Alamo, starring John Wayne as Davy Crockett. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Battle of the Alamo that came to an end on today's date in the year 1836. The German company called Bayer patents the aspirin on today's date in 1899. Now the most common drug in household medicine cabinets, acetylsalicylic acid, was originally made from a chemical found in the bark of willow trees. In its primitive form, the active ingredient salicin was used for centuries in folk medicine, beginning in ancient Greece when Hippocrates used it to relieve pain and fever. Known to doctors since the mid-19th century, it was used sparingly due to its unpleasant taste and tendency to damage the stomach. But it was Bayer that patented the aspirin in Germany. The Bayer Company name and trademark for the U.S. and Canada were auctioned off and purchased by Sterling Products Company, later Sterling Winthrop, for $5.3 million. And Bayer became part of the IG Farben, the conglomerate of German chemical industries that formed the financial heart of the Nazi regime, and after World War II the Allies split apart. IG Farben and Bayer again emerged as an individual company. Its purchase of Miles Laboratories in 1978 gave it a product line including Alka-Seltzer and Flintstones and one-a-day vitamins. In 1994, Bayer bought Sterling Winthrop's over-the-counter business, gaining back rights to the Bayer name and logo and allowing the company once again to profit from American sales of its most famous product, and that, of course, was aspirin. On the 6th of March in 1899. And on the 6th of March in 1902, the Madrid Football Club is founded by a group of fans in Madrid. Later known as Real Madrid, the club would become the most successful European football soccer franchise of the 20th century. With its trademark blue and white uniforms, originally inspired by those of an English team, Madrid began to make a name for itself in Spain almost right away. Under the first coach, the team won 3 titles in a row in the Spanish league known as La Liga, and these were just the first of 29 La Liga championships for Real Madrid, including an impressive 5 consecutive La Liga titles from 1986 to 90. And in the year 2000, soccer's international governing body FIFA selected Real Madrid the best football team of the 20th century. 2 years later, the club celebrated its 100-year anniversary. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Madrid Football Club that was founded on today's date in the year 1902 in Madrid, Spain. A day after the death of longtime Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, and we talked about it yesterday when we were doing some stories from the annals of history, it was Georgy Malenkov named Premier and First Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. His tenure was extremely brief, and within a matter of weeks he was pushed aside by Nikita Khrushchev. On the 6th of March in 1981, CBS Evening News anchor Walter Cronkite signs off with his trademark valediction. And that's the way it is for the final time. Over the previous 19 years, Cronkite had established himself not only as the nation's leading newsman, but as the most trusted man in America's steady presence during 2 decades of social and political upheaval. He had reported from the European front in World War II and anchored CBS coverage of the 1952 and 56 elections, as well as the 1960 Olympics. Took over as the network's premier news anchor in 1962, just in time to cover the most dramatic events of the 60s, the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy being shot, And, of course, Cronkite would cover the other assassinations that rocked the country over the coming years, including those of Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy, and John Lennon. He also reported on some of the most uplifting moments of the era, the most famously the moon landing in 1969. In 1968, at the invitation of the U.S. military, he traveled to Vietnam in a televised special on the war. He said, "It is increasingly clear to this reporter that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate." Uncle Walter was already a household name and one of the most respected men in the country, and his pronouncement that the war was unwinnable is said to have contributed to President Lyndon Johnson's decision not to run for re-election in 1968. Moments like these led to the perception that Walter Cronkite was more straightforward with the American people than their own elected leaders, an attitude reflected in a 1972 poll that named him the most trusted person in the country. And the next few years saw the unfolding of the Watergate scandal, which further degraded public confidence in Washington, and in which Cronkite followed closely. He relinquished the anchor's chair at the age of 65 because CBS mandated that its employees retire at that age. He remained in public life for many years, writing a syndicated column and regularly hosting the Kennedy Center Honors. His replacement, Dan Rather, would hold the job even longer than Cronkite, anchoring the evening news until the year 2005. Nonetheless, due both to his near universally recognized credibility and to the century-defining events he reported to the nation, Walter Cronkite today remains a singular figure, quite possibly the most respected television news journalist in American history. He died in 2009. Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist who gained worldwide fame for her austere minimalist paintings of the American Southwest, dies in Santa Fe at the age of 98 on today's date in 1986. She, of course, was born in Wisconsin and grew up in Virginia and first studied paintings at the Art Institute of Chicago. Her marriage to the New York art dealer and photographer Alfred Stieglitz brought her back to the Northeast. For a decade, she divided her time between New York City and the couple's home in Lake George, New York, and made a brief visit to the small New Mexican village of Taos, and she returned for a longer stay. Attracted to the clear desert light and snow-capped mountains, she began returning to New Mexico every summer to paint. Georgia O'Keeffe found a vibrant and supportive community among the artists that had been flocking there to Taos and Santa Fe. After her husband died, she permanently relocated to New Mexico, and there she continued to produce her hauntingly simple images of the southwestern land that she loved. And by the time she died in 1986 on today's date, she was considered one of the preeminent artists of the American West and had inspired legions of imitators. It was a British ferry leaving Zeebrugge in Belgium that capsized, drowning 188 people on today's date in 1987. Shockingly poor safety procedures led directly to this deadly disaster. An investigator of the accident later said of it, "From top to bottom, the body corporate was affected with the disease of sloppiness." The Herald of Free Enterprise ferry was an 8,000-ton ship owned by Townsend Car Ferries. Usually carried passengers and vehicles from Dover, England, to Calais in France and back. However, that day, the ferry was transferred into service on the company's Belgium to Dover route. It made one of its first trips on the new route, with 543 people, 84 cars and 36 trucks on board as it headed across the English Channel to Dover. Designed to allow vehicles to drive on and off the ship quickly and easily, still in order to save even more time, it was the unofficial policy of the ship's crew to leave port with the bow doors open and to close them as the ship was already moving, a practice that allowed a small but normally inconsequential amount of water into the ferry. This trip that day left the port with the doors open and the person assigned to close them asleep in a bunk. It was later revealed that this too was not unusual. The crew members who were supposed to take over this assignment were unable to close the doors as the Herald pushed out to sea. As crew members frantically pounded the doors with hammers, water flooded into the cargo hold. The vehicles in the hold were tossed back and forth in the water, and a sudden shift in weight caused the ship to tip to the port side. Within minutes, the Herald capsized, and many passengers were thrown into the sea and quickly drowned in the cold 30-foot deep water. Life preservers kept some afloat until rescuers were able to reach them. Still, other passengers remained trapped inside the Herald, some for more than a day, until rescuers could reach them. Ultimately, more than 400 people survived the disaster, including the ship's captain and first officer, though both were suspended for their lax safety procedures. The disaster also resulted in the establishment of new and more extensive safety regulations for ferries crossing the English Channel, as the Herald sank, and that happened in Belgium on today's date in 1987. And after a string of adverse legal decisions, Napster Inc. begins its death spiral on today's date in the year 2001, when it starts to comply with a federal court order to block the transfer of copyrighted material over its peer-to-peer music sharing network. In the year 2000, the new company had created something of a music fan's utopia, a world in which nearly every song ever recorded was instantly available on your home computer for free. Even to some at the time, it sounded too good to be true, and in the end, it was the fantasy world that Napster created that came crashing down in the year 2001 on today's date in the face of multiple copyright violation lawsuits. But people enjoyed it while it lasted. At the peak of Napster's popularity, some 60 million users around the world were freely exchanging digital MP3 files with the help of a program developed by Northeastern University college student Sean Fanning in the summer of 1999. Radiohead, Robert Johnson, The Runaways, Metallica, nearly all of their music was right at your fingertips and free for taking, which of course was a problem for the bands like Metallica, which after discovering their song I Disappear, they're circulating through Napster prior to its official release, filed suit against the company alleging vicarious copyright infringement. Under that U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act, hip-hop artist Dr. Dre soon did the same, but the case that eventually brought Napster down was the $20 billion infringement case filed by the RIAA, the Recording Industry Association of America. And then district court's judge issued a preliminary injunction ordering Napster to remove within 72 hours any songs named by the plaintiffs in a list of their copyrighted material on the Napster network. And the following day, which was today's date, the 6th of March in 2001, Napster Inc. began the process of complying with Judge Patel's order. Though the company would attempt to stay afloat, it shut down its service just 3 months later, having begun the process of dismantling itself on this day in the year 2001. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the story of Napster out there, which, of course, many of you may remember was very, very famous for music lovers. And I'm sure a lot of you may remember Napster. From the annals of history, it was Napster that really came to an end pretty much on this day, the 6th of March in the year 2001. I'm going to try and play a little bit of I Disappear, which was actually released on Napster before its official release by Metallica. Rain chances ramping up this evening through Friday morning and then much cooler into the weekend. Of course, some of you lucky ones saw a little bit of rain yesterday, but not a drop at the DFW airport. And that'll change, though, over the next 48 hours. Cloudy skies this morning, but temperatures now upping the 70s. Clouds rapidly increasing this evening with a decent shot of showers and thunderstorms moving in from the west and continuing off and on through the overnight. A couple of these may become severe, and this weak cold front that's to the south of DFW will lift back to the north tomorrow. Waves of rain will continue through the morning and into the afternoon hours tomorrow, and the severity looks low as of now, but highs will again touch the 70s. We do have supporters of community radio networks that I would like to thank, and they are Discount Power. Big thanks going out to Mr. Malik Jamal, also to Mr. Pradeep Kumar with Houston EB5, and to Pallavi Aluwalia of the Aluwalia Law Offices, also to the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force headed by Lalit Aluwalia, Kinzer Law and attorney Kimberly Kinzer available for your immigration cases, also to the Maikalachi restaurant and their new location, which is the Ruchi Palace. Shri Vimal and their new Vimal's venue located there in Irving, and also the Eggholic restaurant on MacArthur Boulevard in Irving. Big thanks going out to Mystic Mandla as well as Flashbrush Productions. The India Association of North Texas celebrating International Women's Day this Friday, the 8th of March, from 5:30 to 8. Invest in women, accelerate progress. It's happening at the Collin College Frisco Campus Conference Center, Building C, on Wade Boulevard in Frisco. I want you all to register on the India Association's website, iant.org. Then on Saturday, the Consulate General of India in Houston, in association with the BAPS Sri Swami Narayan Mandir in Dallas and other organizations of the region, organizing this one-day consular camp. It's coming up this Saturday from 10 to 5 at the BAPS Sri Swami Narayan Mandir on Highway 161. You need to register to attend the consular camp. You do need to make an appointment, and you can do that at baps.org. We have also the light happening on Saturday from 10:30 to noon, and this is brought to you by the Brahma Kumaris. You're warmly invited to celebrate Shivaratri, the incarnation of the Supreme Being, the Supreme Light, the one who is the bestower of the third eye of knowledge and knower of the three aspects of time. Experience the divine powers through meditation. Do register at bkrymeditation.us, Brahma Kumaris Raja Yoga Meditation.us, and you can attend the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center on Josie Lane in Farmers Branch. Prayanam Foundation is presenting Heart to Heart, hosting a yearly concert where they raise money to support various organizations and children in need. For the last 2 years, they've raised money for organizations such as the Scottish Rite for Children and Autism Therapy Centers, and this charity concert marks Prayanam's third annual event, where they plan to use the money collected to support children and infants affected by heart and lung defects as a result of RSV and other infections. They plan to provide nebulizers to hospitals, provide financially to children and families, and more to support them. And that is Prayanam bringing their event to you this Sunday from 3 to 5:30 at the Frisco Discovery Center. We have the Festival of Colors Holi coming up, and you can get more information on the Dallas Festival at dallasfestivalofcolors.com. We have Texas Women's Society presenting McKinney Asian Festival at the Glenn Mitchell Memorial Park on the 23rd of this month in McKinney. And a holistic festival, a 2-day market on the 29th and 30th of this month, the Easter weekend, Cotton Mill in McKinney, where it will be held. You can call Vijay for more information, 972-750-1419. The Success Door, supporting the Pledge Campaign Foundation, is presenting Fly. First Love Yourself Showcase Season 4. It's happening on the 6th of April at the Dewey Event Center in Louisville from 4 to 8. And TIPS, the Texas Indo-American Physician Society, having their 5K, 10K run or walk, whatever you prefer, the Sunday, the 7th of April at the Oak Point Preserve on Spring Creek Parkway. You can register online at runsignup.com. And while we are talking about TIPS, beginning this year, TIPS NEC, the Northeast chapter here in Dallas-Fort Worth, will be inaugurating a mentorship program to help students of Indian and South Asian origin. And this is for medical students in the North Texas region and graduates of Indian medical schools who are looking for residency positions, fellowships, clinical and research observerships, and jobs. Now, what you can do is get more information by sending an email to mentorship@tipsnec.org. About 31 million people in the U.S. will be able to witness a rare event this spring that won't happen again for another 20 years. A total solar eclipse will occur briefly over a dozen states. That'll be happening on the 8th of April, the last total solar eclipse visible from the U.S. until the year 2044. The U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce having their business plan competition that's happening on the 12th of April, and you can get more information on their website, which is usicoc.com. Dallas Fort Worth chapter of Pratham are having their annual gala on Saturday the 20th of April with the special guest Vidya Vox, the YouTuber and singer, and Krish Dhanam will be the speaker. And of course, he's an author also. This is happening at the Omni Frisco Hotel, and that's on Saturday the 20th of April. Changing lives, transforming communities, and we're thrilled to invite you to the Pratham Dallas Fort Worth Gala, this extraordinary evening dedicated to empowering children and young people in India to transform their lives and communities on Saturday the 20th of April at the Omni Frisco Hotel. And this year's gala theme, Changing Lives, Transforming Communities, will highlight the remarkable impact of Pratham's work in expanding access to quality learning opportunities on the 20th of April. 360 shows, Diamond Productions, and 24/7 Entertainment presenting Neetu Chandra as Umrao Jan, a musical play, a West End musical play in a Broadway style. On the 26th and 27th of April, we'll have 3 shows here in Dallas, and tickets are available at Ticketmaster and at 360shows.com. For more information, you can call Mohammed Abbas at 214-679-6818. And for the first time in American television history, PBS stations across the U.S. will show a new documentary film on Swami Vivekananda called America's First Guru. And that too, a first by an Indian origin documentary filmmaker. We'll be talking more about it. It'll be happening in May of this year. So we encourage you all to make note of that. And again, we'll have details as we get closer to the date. But that's all I have in your social calendar as it stands on this 6th day of March. Wishing you all a lovely Wednesday. We're signing off from Community Radio Networks. And for those of you who'd like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754. And my name is Shabnam Madgil. Every morning right here on Community Radio Networks, you can see us live on YouTube as well as on crn.guru. And then the podcast is available through the day on all major podcast platforms, 15 of them at least, where you can listen to us anytime you want. Community Radio Networks for all of you. crn.guru and my direct number, 214-675-1754.